Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I see we've already got some comments in the comments section. I'll go ahead and answer those first. John Tackett asks, how long is the wait for the next book? It's amazing how I always leave you wanting more. Well, I appreciate that. The next series will be released in January. It's going to be 5 books long. And my plan is to release a book a week as I did all my other stuff. And I'll be running it's a 5-book series, and it'll be a book every week for 5 weeks, and I'm going to run it concurrently with the Kickstarter to launch it. So the Kickstarter will run 5 weeks and end when the last book goes up. So that'll be my next big project. I'm also working on a motion comic that I hope to have up by the end of the month. That's quite a process, so it's not exactly speedy. John also asks if the Soul Force saga is on YouTube. It is not on YouTube at the moment. I licensed the audio rights to Podium Publishing, and I don't get them back until late next year. But as soon as I get them back, I will be posting them on my YouTube channel. So there you go. Art Blade is here. Thanks so much for stopping by. It's great to see you. John Tackett asked again if I'm planning on putting the Dragonspire Chronicles on YouTube. Yes, that's also licensed to Tantor Audio. So again, I won't be able to post it until I get those rights back. So that's probably going to be at least, I think, 3 or 4 years I've got left on that contract. So it'll be a little while. John Knut is here. Hello and welcome. Chaos asks, any more Portal Wars? And he loves my work. There aren't any more in the Portal Wars at the moment. I just started today. I wrote the first chapter of a series that's a spin-off of the Portal Wars set in Coltsland about 10 years after the war with Auden, which is how we left things in the Chamber of Eternity. So it's not exactly Portal Wars, but it's Portal Wars adjacent, I guess. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Part 2, sweet, thanks, Josh says. Yep. Grinning guys. Listening to Portal Wars 1, really great. Thanks for my work. I appreciate that. Heartblade says, hello, good afternoon. That's good to see you. I'd like to know how to get a narrator, how I get a narrator to read my books. I found a writer whose work I enjoyed, and I just emailed and asked him who he used. He told me Joe's name, and I contacted Joe through his website, and we came to a deal, and it actually ended up not working out because it was the original, the first audiobook I was going to do was The Impossible Wizard in my Aegis of Merlin Urban Fantasy series. And I ended up licensing it to Tantor. But Joe did the audio for them. So after that, I hired him to do stuff for me as well, and it worked out really well. So yeah, I would say just if you're looking for a narrator, just find one that you like on Audible or wherever, and just Google his name and contact him through his or her website and say, hey, I've got a thing, and I'd like you to record it for me and see if you can get together on a price. Chaos says, excellent. RTM Cardi is here. You made it this time. Yes, you did. That's all right. Artyom is a big fan of my Aegis of Merlin series. He's in the next book, he's going to have a character that he named. So I'm excited to get to work on that probably early next year. Let's see. How many do we have watching? 13. That's not too bad. Yeah, so One of the reasons I do eventually plan to put all of my audiobooks on my YouTube channel, it's just, as I said, I don't have the rights to all of them because I licensed some of them out when I was first getting started in publishing. I couldn't afford to do audiobooks myself, so I licensed 3 series out. And they're all available for sale on Audible, but I don't have the rights to put them up on YouTube. Brady Bean is here. Great to see you. Thanks so much for stopping. Good to see some familiar faces and some new faces. That's why I decided to do this stream at 4 o'clock. I had people who wanted to participate last week, but couldn't make it at noon. So I decided to give a different time a try and see how that worked out. I'm thinking if it's good, I might alternate every other week because some people said noon was better for them than 4. That way I can go back and forth, and everybody that wants to stop in can and hang out and ask their questions. So, yeah, that's why we're here a little bit later in the afternoon. Scrolling down, any questions yet? Let's see. So I guess I could tell you about the urban fantasy series I just started, or I should say I wrote the first 2 books and sent them off to my editor this week. It was inspired by an anime called Kaze no Stigma. I don't know if you guys have seen that one. Josh Canute asks, what's on the bookshelf? The bookshelf behind me, lots of novels. I think there's almost 2,000 there now. The top shelf over here is old copies of Dragon and Dungeon magazine back from when Wizard of the Coast was still publishing that magazine weekly. I got, I think, I don't know, close to 100 issues of both of them. Ian Creech is here. Welcome. The top shelf on the farthest to my left is my brag shelf where I keep all my novels. Yeah, it's just my collection. I got a lot of them. The one that's kind of blocked by my head over here is 3 shelves worth of the top 3 shelves are Star Wars. Below that is some Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance. And I got all kinds of different books. Brady Bean asks, where do I draw my inspiration for my women characters? They're all so unique, strong, and bold. All over the place, really. You can find great women characters in anime, movies, books, comics. Let's see. Of course, some relatives. I've got some amazing female relatives that have done great stuff and are very inspiring. But is there any female character in particular I can try and tell you where she came from that that you're interested in? Burley Bags, welcome. New fan of the Portal Wars, and he loves my work. That's awesome. Thanks so much. Glad you're enjoying it. Ian Creech asks, any Amber Chronicles on the shelf? Yes, I've got all the Chronicles of Amber. I couldn't tell you exactly where. Some of those shelves back there are 3 layers deep, so I got a lot of books. But yes, I did read those back in the day. Josh Canute, I remember you saying Terry Brooks novels were an inspiration. His dad read those books, and I acquired them from him and loved them as well. Yeah, Terry Brooks, the first Chronicles of Shannara and the second, the Scions of Shannara, were both huge, huge for me. I loved them. I've got a hardcover omnibus collection of both sets. It's like 1,500 pages thick. Ginevra, yeah, the Sea Witch. She was inspired a little bit by Maleficent from the Disney movies, um, but nobody really in particular. I sort of made her up as I went along. I can tell you from that same book that Lady White was very loosely inspired by what's her name? I did a review of the comics too. Lady Death, at least in her look. Ian Creech says, "My man." I don't know if any of you guys have read the Lady Death comics, but they're very good. Sort of an urban fantasy feel to them too. Brady Bean says she was my favorite. Yes, Ginevra was fun. She didn't make out very well against Otto though. Pablo, I am absolutely gonna destroy your name, but I'll give it my best shot. Pablo Eslova. Hi, you told about an urban fantasy I was working on? Tell about the world conception and how it's different from a fantasy world of the Squire of the Portal Wars. The main difference with an urban fantasy is that it's in a modern world that's at least based on the real world. In my universe, I don't know if you guys have read the Ages of Merlin series, but in my universe, every galaxy has an Earth that's basically with land masses and everything pretty much in countries pretty much the same as our Earth. But that way I figure I can set each variation of it on a different Earth in the same galaxy. The one I'm working on now is set 200 years after World War III. It destroyed the US, Russia, and China and did a lot of damage, but the world's wizards were forced to reveal themselves to try and mitigate some of it. And now they're kind of out in the open and doing their thing. It's about, I got the idea for this one, like I was saying, from an anime called Kaze no Stigma. The main character of that inspired the hero for this series. And when I was on YouTube researching the Crusades for another project I've got an idea for, a suggestion for a video popped up talking about Solomon and the 72 Demons. So that's this series is about the hunt for the prisoners holding Solomon's 72 demons. So the first two books were about the first two, and kind of give you a chance to get to know the hero. They were fun. Not too long, both about 200 pages, and yeah, they'll probably come out either late next year or early 2024. As far as the Ages of Merlin series, that's another urban fantasy that's set in a semi-real world. It's got a mix of some real cities as well as some made-up cities and countries and that sort of thing. In that one, the inspiration was a world where only women could do magic, and then suddenly a guy able to do it shows up, and how everyone reacts to him. Pablo says, it sounds very inspiring. Looking forward to reading the story about magic in the future. Yeah, it should be fun. I'm not sure how long of a series it's going to be. Like I said, I just did the first two books. And then I'm taking a break now to work on that epic fantasy trilogy. Ian Creech says it does sound cool. Yeah. This was one where I wrote a 20,000 word novella that leads into the trilogy I'm working on now. But I got the idea for this urban fantasy series, and it came on really strong, and it wouldn't leave me alone until I wrote it. So I had to take a break and crank out those two books, and before I could get back to the epic fantasy series. So that's how you know you have a good idea, when the idea won't leave you alone until you write it. Pablo says that guy is an imposter. He must be a girl disguised as a guy. No, no, Connery is definitely a guy. Adam Feist says, what's my process for character development? Or do you launch characters, let the personalities grow and evolve naturally as I write the story? The second one, I don't make up a lot of details beyond, you know, I'll have a rough idea what they look like and what their current situation is, but how they react to the plot is sort of how you build out their personalities. People reveal their personalities through actions rather than anything I came up with ahead of time would be boring and I'd end up not following it anyway, just like if I wrote an outline for the story. So yeah, it's a natural process. I mean, certain things, like in the one I had, the urban fantasy I was just telling you about the 72 demons. I knew I wanted him to have a bad relationship with the main character, to have a bad relationship with his family, which he does. And but other than that, I didn't really have anything major planned. Global Hoppy says, "Yay, I'm here." Yes, yay, I'm glad you can make it. There's definitely some new faces here from our 12 o'clock stream, so I'm glad I decided to try a different time. That worked out well. Hopefully we can keep it going. Yeah, as to the characters, especially the main characters, letting them develop naturally over time, over the course of the story is important, at least for the way I work. I know some people like to fill out these detailed character sheets like you were making a Dungeons & Dragons character, but I've never had much luck doing it that way. I think the only time I ever filled one of those out was for a writing class I took way back, probably 20 years ago. And I don't think I ended up using any of the characters I wrote down. Let's see, we're up to 17 people. Great, everybody can make it. Let's see, any other questions? Not yet. Here we go. Artyom says, speaking of family, I noticed a trend where a good number of my main characters tend to lose their fathers. Yeah, actually, in the Aegis of Merlin urban fantasy series, Conry's father is around for most of it. It's only until I think the 7th book when he's killed in battle. So, yeah, no. Let's see. Yeah, although some of them lose both their relatives, so I guess I'm not good. I guess keeping people's families together, but you know, when you're writing a story, you want your hero to have a bad time. That's what makes it interesting. Catherine Gilwhiskey, I think, says, "Hi, I made this one. I really appreciate you giving us your time." Oh, I'm happy to do it. I love chatting with you guys. It's a lot of fun, and I'm glad you could make it. Brady Bean says, "It was good talking to you. Thanks for talking. I got to sign off." All right, Brady. Thanks so much for stopping by. Pablo asks, "How long does it take to write a book in a series when you probably already have an idea of the whole story, but need to complete a part of the story?" It depends. I can usually write a book in about 6 to 8 weeks, and depending on the length of the series, obviously. You know, I think the Dragonspire Chronicles, which was 6 books, took me about 9 months to write, and then another probably 6 months of production time, you know, editing and things like that. But yeah, it depends on the series. Ian asks, do I ever imagine my stories in television series or movie? Or is that not interesting? Yeah, that's very interesting. And I do imagine it. The way I write, actually, I can kind of see the story in my head like it's a movie, and then I just sort of type out what I see. But the thing with getting your work adapted in any form is, especially movies and TVs these days, is getting it done in a way that doesn't destroy the story. Like a lot of the stuff recently has just been impossible to watch. I don't even watch adaptations of anymore if it's of a book I like, because I don't want to have it ruined. Artblade says 19 watching now, only 9 likes. No, I didn't hire him to say that, but Artblade is awesome. He always has a great comment for any video I put up. CMDR Stargazer says, do I map my world out like Tolkien, or does it progress as the stories as needed? I don't do outlines, if that's what you mean. If you mean, do I actually draw a map of the world, then I might sketch something out, but nothing, that's really good. I've never had it's one of the things I might do one day is like a bonus for a Kickstarter, is a map of my various story worlds, but I've never had one made, at least not so far. RDMC's 210 likes. Wow. I'm not sure how I would have got that many on with so few people watching, but that's cool. Kathleen says, how do I structure my day when I'm working on a book? Morning is usually business stuff until lunch. Well, 10 o'clock, I usually go up and get the mail on a weekday, and then I'll have early lunch, and then about 12:30, I sit down at my computer and I'll type. I'll work until I've got about 1,000 words. Then I take a break, get up, move around, check email and that sort of thing. Then I sit down and write another 1,500, 1,700 words, and until I get to. I shoot every day for 6 pages, which is about 1,500 words. And if I'm running in a good groove, I'll go further. Sometimes 7 or 8 pages is not unusual. And then when I get done, if I have time, I'll work on something else, either a YouTube video if I'm working on an audiobook, or whatever I have to work on, until it's time for supper, and then I relax in the evening with a book. But yeah, every day is a minimum every day of 6 pages. Consistency. I might not write as fast as a lot of indie authors, but I do. But I'm consistent. I get my words done every day. My goal is to write 6 pages a day, 350 days a year. So you can get a lot of books done that way. Pablo says 6 to 9 weeks per book. Yeah, no, that's pretty typical. No, I'm not George Martin speed, but my books are nowhere near as long as his either. So I'm only writing books that are 250, 300 pages usually. So not the door stoppers that some epic fantasy authors write. Adam says, last week I mentioned a possible prequel or a sequel for The Squire. Yeah, I don't even have a solid idea for that, so I have no idea when I might get to it. I have so many ideas. The truth is, I don't know when I'm going to get to anything in particular. I've got next year pretty well planned out. So if I do a sequel to The Squire, it'll probably be at least 2024. CMDR Stargazer says, thanks. You're welcome. Ian Crease says, adaptations. Ugh, I hear you on that. Yes, adaptations can be rough. Yeah, I don't watch them anymore. It's just too depressing. Artblade says, LOL, that's the fantasy vision. That's fantasy vision. I'm not sure what that means. It says in terms of speed writing. Oh, the 6. Oh yeah, I'm a little bit faster than George in terms of speed of writing. Yes, Yes, I'm not sure what George does with his schedule, but probably a lot of TV stuff, since that's, I think, where he makes the most of his money. Can't really blame him either, considering how successful Game of Thrones was. Ernie Bear Don't Walk. Would I ever write a Thieves World inspired novel? I truly enjoy your characters. Thank you. You're welcome, and I appreciate the kind words. Uh, Thieves World inspired. I'm not sure what Thieves World is, but I do have an idea that's inspired by Thief the Dark Project that's going to be set in my Portal Wars world, starring the thief from the Sanguine Scroll. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it, but I do have an idea for it. John D says, will we be hearing any more from Damien St. Cloud? I don't have any ideas for another Damien story yet. By the end of the Chains of the Fallen duology, Damien's so strong, it's hard coming up with ideas that'll challenge him. Richard Simpson says, thanks for sharing my work. Oh, you're welcome. It's been a lot of fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed since I started on YouTube. Of all the social media things I've done, I like this the best. Especially I'm kind of, you can probably tell I'm better. I think I'm better this week, but I'm still pretty nervous in front of the camera. But it's really a lot of fun chatting with you guys. So I'm glad you showed up. Everyone showed up. Artyom says, how much do I tend to focus on world building? I personally find myself going from simple to suddenly a few months of world building. I guess that's why I like being a GM. I mostly do world building as I go. Like for the Portal War series, I didn't know anything or very little about the greater world. I just sort of made it up as Otto reached a new area. Like I knew quite a bit about Shank Barony, and then the capital, and then Garenland in general, and then Strachan, and then, I just kept building it slowly as I wrote the story. I don't really do too much ahead of time on that either. Artblade says, James, I meant his 210 likes that he saw. That is fantasy vision that makes him see it. I got you now. Ian Creech says, anything I can tell you about myself, pets, hobbies, things that inspire my imagination other than books and media? I don't have any pets. I am very allergic to furry critters, and I don't like snakes and spiders, so no pets for me. I've taken up pickleball the last month and a half. I find I thoroughly enjoy that. That's my main hobby. I like to read. I read a lot. Yeah. Pablo says, the thief from book 7 is a great character, but I robbed him for that. Oh, yeah. Otto took his dagger, but he got a sword in exchange, so that's not such a bad deal for him. Global Hoppy said, I had a large inclination towards my work, and I find your conversations and books inspiring. I've tried to take the same calm anger and devilish charm with my main character. Well, that's good. I'm glad I could help. I appreciate the kind words too. It's always nice to hear people are enjoying my stuff. I'll be honest, I've been doing this now for a little over 7 years, and I still find it strange to have fans, I guess. Eddie East says, glad I could catch part of the chat today. Sadly, I have a call in 3 minutes. If it's short, I'll be back. I enjoyed the books and the chats. Amazing work. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie, and very much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Hope your call goes well. Yeah, back when I was a kid, I had a cat, but it always seemed like I would get sick because my allergies would flare up and I wouldn't be able to breathe so good. So after my last cat died, I didn't get another one. I find I haven't gotten as sick since then either, so I guess it worked out okay. Although I do miss having a cat in my lap when I'm reading sometimes. Anything else? Back to the question about world building for the Portal Wars. Part of the thing I most enjoyed about the last 3 books was being able to explore other areas of the world. First Colt's Land, and then the Celestial Empire. So, Ian asks, "What's the symbol you use for your YouTube channel?" The wheel. Oh, the skull, but my Skullbound logo. I had that made for a series that I ended up putting on the shelf and not working on. But the logo was too cool not to use, so I decided to make it my my logo on all my social media and stuff. I call it Skullbound logo because it's got the skull surrounded by swords. But says, I just noticed that we can only see your head in the screen. Would it be polite if I asked about my health? My health is good. I'm just sitting in my chair kind of slouched. See, everything's okay. And I appreciate the concern, Pablo. Thanks for asking. Global Hoppy says, I'm still catching up with Children of Junk, and it's amazing. You see so calm. You must have that swagger. Believe me, if you could see me on the inside, I wouldn't be calm. But I'm nowhere near as nervous this stream as I was last time. John D says, are any of your stories connected in the same universe? Yes, all my stories are set in the same universe, just different worlds. The archangels, the demon lords, and the void all carry through all my different series. Even the sci-fi series that Global Hoppy was mentioning, in the final book, you'll see how it all plays together. And I've got an idea for a post-apocalyptic story that's going to be set in that universe, in the galaxy where that sci-fi story is set. So yeah, that'll be interesting. It's sort of going to be Vampire Hunter D inspired. The God Slayer says, I was so glad when I came across your work. I'm highly enjoying the Portal War series. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. I noticed yesterday that the Hidden Tower crossed 100,000 views, which is absolutely amazing to me. I can't believe how many people have checked it out. Oh, we're down to only 9 people watching. Looks like 4 o'clock's not going to end up being as popular as noon. I think we had 27 last time. Ian Creech says, we can tell you're a sincere person. I would be nervous too doing what I'm doing. Well, I appreciate that. I do try to be sincere at the very least, even if I'm not particularly funny. I find it's easy to be sincere when, dealing with people who are asking, honest questions and stuff. Global Hoppy, the Portal Wars was my fave so far. I really love the visual world that opens up in my mind. Yeah, the Portal Wars has definitely been my most popular series by like a lot. I'd say the Aegis of Merlin Urban Fantasy series is probably next most popular. But yeah, I'm glad everyone's liking it so much. I certainly had a lot of fun writing it. If I do eventually write book 8, that should be interesting as well. And this series now, of course, is set in the same world, though, with different characters. Godslayer says the voice actor is great, by the way. It can really make or break an audiobook. Yes. His name's Joe Hempel, and he had a post on his Facebook page, I think, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, announced, celebrating his 450th audiobook recorded. So he's got a lot of experience. I think he's done like 20, 30 of mine, maybe something like that. 30 some of mine. And when he gets done with this current series he's working on, I think it'll be 37. Wow, 37. Artblade says, I find it nice that in both the streams, the live comments have been civilized and generally nice. I thank everyone for that. I do as well. Sci-Fi Nerd 1911 says, hell yeah, glad I caught this. Glad to see you're doing a live stream today. Yep, it's until you guys get sick of it, I'm planning on this being a weekly thing, so we'll be back to noon next week. Ian Creech says, Portal Wars will be a great TV series as long as it's true to my work. I feel like everyone would really enjoy the adventure. I think so. It might be a lot of fun, but as long as it's true to your work part is the most important thing. Getting somebody willing to do that would be the challenge. So. Don't mind the clunking ice in my bottle. Pablo says, I tried with one of your first videos on YouTube. You were reading by yourself. Unfortunately, overlapping constant music made it very hard to distinguish my voice. Yeah, that's the lightning. I haven't gotten that one recorded as an actual audiobook yet, and I was still kind of messing around with how I wanted the format to be, so it really didn't turn out that great. But it was still fun to make, and it was a learning experience for sure. CMDR Stargazer says, any ideas for a spin-off with Alan, Ulf, and Sin centered around the tavern? He liked those characters. Not at the moment, but they were fun characters to write, so I might someday. And they might put in an appearance if I write the 8th book in the series. I'm sure they'll show up. Artyom says, I think I need to reread the Portal Wars series, starting to forget a few details. Yes, I wrote them and I forget details all the time. Pablo says, anyway, thank you so much for your work. Oh, you're very welcome. Ian says, is the mithril in your world the same as Tolkien's? I'm not really sure. I just needed a name for the magical metal, and I thought that sounded cool. So it's really just a rare ore that enhances the ether. So I suppose it might be inspired by Tolkien's, but I don't know that it's necessarily the actual same thing. A lot of different stories have used the name mithril. So. Let's see. Here we go. Catherine says, I find your characters so vivid and lifelike. I actually see them in my mind as I'm reading. When you create a character, do you sketch out what they look like and have that at hand? No, I'm not a good enough artist to do something like that. Sometimes a character will be based on an actor or an actress. Like Conryu for my Aegis of Merlin story was based on Brandon Lee. Mose from the Dragonspire Chronicles was based on Michael Jai White. So sometimes, like I said, but I don't really, I know some people will like find a model or an illustration or something that that captures the character for all their characters, but I only do it occasionally if I have a clear vision in mind. But no, I don't have them all planned out or anything like that. Artie does, if I remember correctly, wasn't there a Soul Force comic book in the works? Yes, that's the motion comic I'm working on now. I hope to have it done. The first book in the series is completed, and I'm working on turning it into a motion comic. So that should be a lot of fun. I think I'm 6 pages in, and it's a 49-page book, so it's not a speedy process. It is fun though. I've been adding music and sound effects to that as well, and Joe did all the voices for me. CMDR Stargazer says, "How do I keep my world separated and avoid recycling ideas?" I'm not sure, I'll be honest with you. The way I write, I just sort of make it up as I go, and as long as the characters are different, what they do, their reactions are going to be different, and the challenges they face are going to be different. So I haven't really had any trouble. Some of the themes you'll find, I mean, the actual stories are different, but some of the themes you'll find are similar in the various books. There's always a young, late teens, early 20s person who's been ill-used by society, finding his way and becoming strong, and that sort of thing. I'll be right back, you guys. I gotta go get a drink. I'm all out of water. Sorry about that. I've been drinking. Oh, hey, we're up to 12 people watching. All right, some more people must have popped in while I was gone. Yeah, so as far as recycling ideas, I honestly don't think that much about it. I just tell the story I have in my head, and hopefully it's unique enough that everybody enjoys it. But yeah, as far as ideas go, it's every idea has been done so many times. It's really just your unique take on it that makes a story interesting. Global Hoppy says, important question. Have you ever lost or deleted a bunch of paragraphs and have to start all over from scratch? If you have or remember it, what has changed about it? I use a writing program called Scrivener, and it makes automatic backups every minute. So I don't think I've ever actually lost more than a paragraph, and I don't even remember if there was anything different about it or not. Yeah, but backing up is very important. If any of you guys are writers, definitely have your automatic backup set as frequently as possible. Yeah, if you do that, it'll save you a lot of heartache. I can't imagine. I remember one of my writing teachers, Dean Wesley Smith. He had a bunch of paper copies of some of his short stories, and his house burned down, and he lost all that work, and I can't even imagine. That must have been so depressing. Thankfully, nothing like that has happened to me. I keep copies of all my work on hard drive, external hard drives. I've also got a thumb drive in a safe, locked in a safe, fireproof safe. So It's about as safe. All my stuff is about as safe and secure as I can get it. Adam Feist says, "Do real life experiences play any part in the creation of my books?" Um, a little bit, I suppose. I guess all your life experiences play a part. But my life's pretty boring, so if I wrote too much of my life experiences into my books, nobody'd want to read them. I can tell you one thing that I always remember, that in the Soul Force saga, I named Port Velcane after this chemotherapy drug my mom was taking at the time, called Velcade. So I guess that was real life and taking apart one of my stories. Paolo says, "What is the process of teaching somebody to write books?" Well, Dean does a whole bunch of different courses. Most of them are small, are like 6 weeks, and work on a single aspect of the writing process, descriptions, dialogue, writing characters, that kind of thing. I think I've taken 15 or 20 of his different classes, and I've gotten something great out of all of them. So if any of you are wanting to learn, Dean's courses are a great place if you want to learn craft. Catherine says, "How old was I when I knew I wanted to be an author?" I was a senior in high school when I knew I wanted to be an author. I couldn't write very well. I actually had to take remedial English in 10th grade, so I'm sure my remedial English teacher will be shocked that I've written 42 novels. So, but what I was having trouble with at the time was writing business letters and essays. There's a very specific formula you have to follow to pass the test, and I just had a hard time following the formula. It was always topic sentence, 3 supporting sentences, and then another next topic sentence, and all this other by the numbers stuff, and it really has no bearing on fiction writing, which it turns out I'm actually reasonably good at. So that was a nice surprise. But yeah, I've been writing fiction since I was 18, and I never really had much interest in traditional publishing, so I didn't start putting my work out until indie publishing got to be a real thing. I think around 2014. Yeah, I think I had 4 or 5 novels ready to go when I finally decided to start publishing, so that was handy. I just wrote. I always liked to tell stories, so writing was a natural thing for me when I finally, figured out. It's just a matter of figuring out technique more than anything. And I think I've taken, I don't even know how many writing classes. I took a Long Ridge Writers Group class for short stories right out of high school. That was fun. I took a novel writing course from Writer's Digest. That was the only that class was interesting, but it's their process is nothing like what I ended up wanting to do. You had to do an outline and everything, and it wasn't great. I still learned a lot, but I also learned I hated doing outlines, so I don't do those anymore. What else? As far as go back to that question about teaching somebody how to write a book, it's really the best way to learn to write books is to read a lot. You absorb the structure of stories that way. Sci-fi Nerd 1911 says, "My books have really gotten him thinking about the idea of magic. What if something took place nowadays? People started popping up with magical abilities like we saw in the first X-Men movie. Yeah, that's basically urban fantasy. Superhero movies are that's what they are essentially is urban fantasy. So Adam Feist says, "Is there an outlet to purchase your books in Braille?" No, I have no idea how to go about getting a book made in Braille. Honestly, Pavel says, "That would be an awful experience if you would write your novels with those with those 3 to 4 sentences. Uh, Glad you didn't excel in that class." Yeah, my business writing class. Yeah, I did. I don't know how I finally managed it, but I must have hammered the details in, and I did end up passing to get out of remedial English. So I was very happy about that. I'm sure my teacher was too. It was a pretty frustrating process for everyone involved. What's funny is the teacher teaching remedial English was actually our Spanish teacher. Not exactly sure how she got the job, but I think there was 5 of us in that class, and yeah, we were all in the Spanish class learning how to write English. So that was, I thought, kind of funny. She was a nice teacher though, so it wasn't too bad. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, so the X-Men. People started cropping up with magic in the X-Men. Yeah, mutant powers aren't really all that different from magic, so you could practically say you could set a series of superhero books in my universe with no problem at all. Who knows? Someday I might end up writing one. I've also got a really good idea for an isekai story where somebody from our world gets sent to a fantasy world. I'm quite looking forward to that. Although when I'll get to it, heaven only knows. Let's see. John D says, "Have I ever stepped outside of science fiction and fantasy stories?" Uh, Not much. I've written a couple of detective short stories that were for classes, and they were fun. But no, for some reason, magic pretty much always ends up working its way into my stories. That's just the way my brain works. I've always thought I'd like to write like an action adventure Indiana Jones kind of story. I have an idea for a fantasy Indiana Jones style story, but I've never really written like thrillers or romance or anything like that. Not sure how I do writing something without magic, since all my characters tend to be wizards or swordsmen or something. It might be an interesting challenge one day, but I built up a pretty good following in the science fiction and fantasy genre, so I'm reluctant to leave them. Oh, here's one I missed. Ian says, "Do I like music?" I understand music and picture writing similar to music, spacing the ideas out properly. I do like music. I listen to a mixture of classical music and heavy metal music. I found on YouTube, I found these long 3 and 4 hour videos that are just instruments with no voice. Those are great if you're writing, because sometimes the lyrics can distract you from the story. Artyom says, "I find that when I tried following along with classes that teach you how to write, I just start over thinking and getting filled with self-doubt. Now I avoid them." Yeah, depending on the teacher, but I've learned a lot from Dean's classes, especially. So I would if you're interested, I would definitely give them a shot, especially if you just want to learn some basic techniques. Especially his course on openings and how to use detail and how much to include and that sort of thing. They help my writing a lot. So yeah, that was it really what you get out of a writing course has a lot to do with your teachers. Dean's been in the writing business, I think, now for 40 years, so he's written a lot of novels and really knows what he's doing. I think some teachers teach but don't actually write novels themselves, so you know, they might have more theory than practical advice to offer. You can get value out of theory too, but learning from somebody who has done what you want to do is really the best way, I think. At least it has been for me. I've heard good things about Dave Farland too. I haven't taken any of his courses. You can also listen to Brandon Sanderson's college lectures on YouTube for free, so you might get something out of that. I don't know. I tried to watch them, but I couldn't get very far into it. Pablo says, "What's my favorite SF science fiction and fantasy world of other authors and why?" Boy, Terry Brooks, well, in the Shannara universe, will always have a special place in my heart as the first one I ever fell in love with. I really enjoyed Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time as well. The funny thing is, my two favorites were made into just god awful TV shows, and it kind of killed some of my enthusiasm for them. What they did to the Shannara series on that MTV series was just appalling. Catherine says, "Thank you for making your books available in audio." Yeah, as soon as I could afford it, that was one of the big things I wanted to do, and especially posting them on YouTube, so people who maybe can't afford to buy them on Audible or wherever they like to listen to can listen. And I get a little bit of ad revenue, so it works out good for everybody. You can also most of them are available in audio at libraries for borrowing too, if you want to ask your librarian. Godslayer says, "R.I.P. Shannara Chronicles. They really butchered that show. They really did. I was so disappointed. I was really excited. I think that was one of the first fantasy adaptations I watched on TV, and I remember watching it and thinking, this is going to be awesome. And then I watched it. I think I made it through 4 episodes before I was like, nope. I'm not going to watch that garbage anymore. I'm afraid if I made it through the whole thing, it might have killed the books for me too." Hardium says, "How sad it is that lately TV adaptations have had little to no appreciation for the original works." It really is. I think what bothers me most is how much potential there is for so many shows and how much of it's squandered. It's depressing. Catherine says, "So love the Sword of Shannara. That series is a travesty of justice." Yes, it absolutely was. I haven't been able to trust an adaptation since Aragon. Yeah, I didn't actually watch that one, but I've heard bad things. I didn't never read the book either. Not sure how that one made it through, but I'll maybe have to look it up one day. Arblade said, "Did anyone leave questions for the stream on my homepage?" No, nobody contacted me through the contact thing. I was expecting at least a few, but nope. I didn't get a single question ahead of time. And speaking of questions, I see we've reached the 1 hour point. So I'll take a last call if anybody has anything else they want to ask. And then we'll wrap this up for next week when we're back to 12 o'clock. I don't see any more coming in. So I will say good evening to everyone. And thank you all so much for stopping into my live stream. I had a lot of fun. I'll see you next week.